baik tu dia jadi beratahu रेडियो फीजी बहुत रेडियो फीजी रोज सुनता हूँ
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन.
Good evening, Fiji. In this bulletin, 285 ATS employees terminated, suspended SODELPA likely to advertise General Secretary's post, and bail for police officers charged with assault.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Jackie Spate.
Effective today, 285 employees of Air Terminal Services Limited have had their contracts terminated. This is due to the impacts of COVID-19 on tourism and aviation. In a statement this afternoon, ATS said the Board of Directors approved the management's termination of employment contracts following a meeting on Wednesday. Acting Chief Executive Harry Money says the company noted that this was a very difficult decision to make and only made after exhausting all other options. Money says in implementing termination, the company chose not to simply give notice as per the employment contract, but rather to make payment in lieu of notice. Over 40% of the workforce had already exhausted paid leave provisions and were on leave without pay. Money says employees therefore received 2 weeks of wages they would not otherwise have been entitled to. Further to this, the company paid a 10% loading on all accumulated annual and long service leave as per their contract. And now Felipe Naikaso joins us live from the West Office. Felipe, what else does the ATS board have to say?
Jackie, now ATS will continue with further provisions of terminations. However, they will be careful to ensure that some staff who will apply for early retirement do so with a financial beneficial. Also, ATS has stated that staff are open to come into the Human Resources Office and clarify any of these issues. So far, the company has already processed voluntary early retirement for 30 staff as of to date. Now, Jackie, the ATS also consulted with FASA, the Staff Association, yesterday, and they emphasized on the goal of achieving a mutually beneficial outcome. Unfortunately, according to ATS, the meeting eventually ended with FASA staff walking out without exploring any options. Meanwhile, the Fiji Trades Union Congress has condemned the terminations made by ATS. National Secretary Felix Anthony says the reason given by ATS to not be able to fulfill its contract with workers is an excuse to do so, as Fiji Airways did a few weeks ago. Anthony also claims a copycat termination of workers is a concern, as both organizations are majority owned by government, which has endorsed the terminations.
Thanks for that, Felipe. The University of the South Pacific Council has set aside the suspension of Vice-Chancellor Professor Paul Aluwalia. A media release from the Council states that having considered the decision by the Executive Committee, it is not persuaded that due process was followed. It has also directed that the process as prescribed in an ordinance to govern the discipline of the Vice-Chancellor be followed in investigating any allegations against Aluwalia. When approached after the meeting, Minister for Education Rosie Akbar said the Fijian government will support whatever decision is made by the USP Council. Akbar says there were 5 representatives from Fiji at the meeting, adding that Pro-Chancellor Winston Thompson had been asked to recuse himself to avoid any conflict of interest.
I think the whole idea of the meeting today was to find a quick resolve to the issues happening at the university. And Fiji stand, like I said, has always been on good governance, and we still promote good governance, and that's why we are part of the council decision.
The suspended Social Democratic Liberal Party is expected to advertise the position of General Secretary tomorrow. At the Management Board meeting in Suva yesterday, executives were confident the suspension would be lifted since they had filled casual vacancies as required. However, as Edwin Nunn reports, the board failed to follow its own constitution.
The Management Board appointed Emile Duituturanga as Acting General Secretary, but it can't do so without first advertising a vacancy.
General election 2022.
The SODELPA Constitution requires the Management Board to follow a nationally recognized recruitment process for the position of General Secretary, and that the management board needs to go through that route to appoint a substantive person at that position.
Duitu Turanga and suspended party lawyer Tanya Wanganika met with Saneem yesterday as the rest of the management board waited at the Holiday Inn. However, they did not get the good news they were expecting.
They have had to return to the management board, which is still meeting, to put forward the constitution and work out ways to comply with the constitution.
The management board meeting ended late yesterday, directing its task force to take over.
We thought we would be able to do it. There are differences between what we took up and what was expected by the supervisor of election. So we'll have to comply and come back and redo it.
FBC News understands the General Secretary's post will be advertised tomorrow and follow the process of appointment in order to have its suspension lifted. Edwin Nand, FBC News.
The 5 police officers who were charged with their alleged involvement in an assault case have been bailed. Sevenai Narongi ka Meli Tukana ma Foa Korosaya Inoke Nangata and Chokaveti Rambuku appeared in the Nausori Magistrates Court this afternoon. They are facing various charges, including act with intent to cause grievous harm, assault causing actual bodily harm, and common assault. It's alleged the 4 male officers punched and kicked the victim, causing him actual bodily harm in Nangietai Level in April. Female officer Chokaveti Rambuku has additional charges of conspiracy to defeat justice and interfering with witnesses. All of the accused have been bailed with 2 sureties each in order to surrender their travel documents. The magistrate told them not to interfere with witnesses. The case has been transferred to the Suva High Court and will be called on July 2nd. Up ahead, FSC expects over $200 million in revenue, and Minister ends North tour on a high.
Pula nadang ko approach lang karse, go erkraki, do talebe on varong na Radio Fiji 1 nandomo ibiti.
Radio Fiji 1 nandomo ibiti.
Health Minister Dr. Feremi Wangana-Mbete has reiterated the need for Fijians to conform to the current behavioural changes of living. He says the decision to lift restrictions might be tough, even though Fiji hasn't recorded any new COVID-19 cases in the past 8 weeks. Chosai Nanunga has more.
The Health Minister highlighted the risk of new cases is high if Fijians are allowed to go back to their usual way of life.
Work continues in terms of the discussions with other stakeholders. Our role really as a Minister of Affairs to provide that technical advice, and the Honourable Prime Minister will make those announcements. Very satisfied that our advice has been heard in order to protect the health of our nation.
Meanwhile, the New Zealand government today handed over an additional 40 life-saving air voice machines worth of $1.5 million to the Health Ministry.
We know from New Zealand's experience just this week, where we've had 3 new COVID positive patients, that Fiji, with 80 of these devices now in place around the country, is well prepared for any eventuality when we're dealing with COVID-19 in the future.
And the fact that New Zealand has committed itself to the high flow oxygen machine has been able to enable us to work on other areas that are important in providing adequate oxygenation and also respiration to patients who may be affected by COVID-19 as we were preparing.
These machines are in addition to the 40 donated in April and will be distributed to divisional hospitals to assist in keeping Fijians healthy. Chosai Nanunga, FBC News.
The Fiji Sugar Corporation hopes to rake in close to $200 million from sugar and molasses sales in the 2020-2021 season. Chief Executive Graham Clark says the industry will be a major contributor to foreign exchange. FSC makes close to $150 million from sugar sales on the world market and another $40 million from local and regional markets. Apart from this, the corporation exports molasses to the Caribbean and Asian region. Clark says the FSC's contribution will be more critical than ever amidst these times of uncertainty.
So we'll be putting back, nearly $200 million into the economy, and you see what that means to a place like Lambasa, small towns like Ba, Rakiraki, and even in the bigger areas. When that money goes out into the system, you see an immediate impact. Activity starts, shopkeepers get excited, people spend money, and it's an expectation when we make a cane payment.
Preserving our environment and biodiversity is critical to ensuring our future generations do not face extreme drought or land turned to desert. The Minister for Environment says the onus is on all Fijians who interact with the environment on a daily basis to ensure there is sustainable land management practices. Koroi Tandulala reports.
The Environment Ministry is undertaking a number of activities to ensure sustainable land management.
Under these two strategic objectives, we've got a number of activities and sub-activities which contributes towards sustainable resource management. We are required for certain plant species that if we cut down a particular tree, for example mangroves, we are required to plant 6.
With the theme Food, Feed, Fiber, this year's World Day to Combat Desertification and Drought 2020 is focused on changing public attitudes to the prominent driver of desertification and land degradation.
It's important that we educate ourselves, educate the future generations, our children, so that we all cherish, acknowledge, accept, and look after our natural biological diversity.
A significant amount of investment is actually planned in that area. A lot of activity is also planned in that area.
The ministry is encouraging Fijians to be mindful of their activities to ensure they are not jeopardizing the natural ecosystem for future generation. Koroi Tandulala, FBC News.
Over 2,000 trees were planted in the Northern Division in the last 2 weeks as part of the 30 Million Trees in 15 Years campaign led by Forest Minister Seanangamu. The interest in the tree planting program continues as rural communities reforest their idle lands. Eleanor Tarangaivu reports this is part of government's approach to combating climate change through nature-based solutions.
14 villages in 5 districts in the province of Madhuwata in the span of 2 weeks, taking the gospel of tree planting as a means to reducing the impact of climate change on our land.
I must say my tour of the Northern Division is an eye-opener, as the reality of the drastic impact of climate change is evident in the 14 villages I have visited.
Coastal erosion, village relocation, sea level rise and the disappearance of flora and fauna, evidence of the impact of climate change physically witnessed by the minister.
Climate change is real. It is happening right now, and it is the most urgent threat facing our entire species.
100 trees were planted in each of the 14 villages as part of the 30 Million Tree in 15 Years campaign, a commitment made by the Prime Minister Vorenge Bainimarama in New York last year. And with more communities expressing interest in the tree planting program, the ministry is optimistic of achieving its tree planting target this year.
We will achieve our 2 million trees national target set for this year.
The minister ended his tour yesterday with a tree planting program for the Batulawona Multicultural Youth Club in Madhuwata, where 800 tree seedlings were planted in the Matangali land. Eleanor Turangaivu, FBC News.
And Whitney joins us now with the latest in business.
Thanks, Jackie. Coming up in business tonight, more small businesses shift towards cashless payments. And in growing Fiji, Tamasua villagers welcome nursing station and solar freezer. Stay with us.
My name is Neha and I'm from Kadavi. And Mirchi FM, it's hot.
Mirchi FM, it's hot.
Many micro, small and medium enterprises are now shifting towards a cashless society, offering convenient form of transaction to their customers through Vodafone's M-Pesa mobile platform. Weta Coffee is a new business to join the platform. The use of electronic payment has been amplified during this COVID-19 pandemic as people are opting for safer way of payment.
Pre-COVID, we used to get around $2 million Fijian into M-Pesa directly from overseas.
This has now increased to $7 million as of last month. M-Pesa is secure, real-time, and in current pandemic, a much more hygienic way to pay.
I really do think in these times when, as you pointed out, everyone has a mobile phone, this is the future. Not only does it remove cash from the equation and the complications that come, the accounting complications that come with cash, and now the hygiene issues that we've seen with COVID-19.
Keeping social distancing and cost control in mind, Digicel Fiji today announced a partnership with fuel distributor Pacific Energy Limited. They will now be the telecommunications provider for Pacific Energy, which includes its mobile and internet services and vehicle tracking. Pacific Energy Chief Executive Randall Vallet says communication is important, and due to COVID-19, people are now relying more on video conferencing and harnessing technology. The CEO says the partnership will enable them to practice social distancing.
Today, Digicel sponsor and relays communication on social distancing, which is very important. I think it's the most important in our situation today to be able to get out of this situation.
Sanifa from HFC Bank joins us now with the latest from the money market.
U.S. weekly jobless claims have stayed about 1 million for the 13th consecutive week as the coronavirus pandemic continues to hammer the U.S. economy. Markets reacted negatively to the disappointment with the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping today. Meanwhile, Australian retail sales surged a record 16.3% in May as a wide-scale easing in coronavirus lockdowns allowed entire sectors to reopen, enabling a recovery from a historic plunge in April. Elsewhere, the euro lost about 1.3% of its value against the US dollar since Tuesday, as questions grow about the political viability of the European Union's stimulus plan. As the week comes to a close, the US administration may look to change the narrative with another fiscal stimulus package, and investors are also keeping a wary eye on Australian trade ties as relations strain with China over the handling of the coronavirus outbreak. That's all for this week from HFC Bank, Vinaka.
Turning to today's exchange rates as set this morning, the Fiji dollar gained against the currencies of our two major trading partners, Australia and New Zealand, and also was up versus the PNG Kina and the euro, but lost some ground against the US dollar, the Chinese yuan, and the Japanese yen. Looking at the commodities, oil prices went back on the rise today, closing above $39 a barrel. Gold was down at $1,724 per ounce, and silver dropped as well to $17.37 an ounce. The unveiling of two new projects will uplift the lives of Fijians living in Tikina of Yasawa, Irara, Iyata. Prime Minister Vorenge Bainimarama yesterday opened the new 300,000 Tamasua nursing station, which will benefit some 258 people from the villages of Tamasua, Nambukeru, Navotoa, and children of the nearby primary school. Alpanisa Wangairandover reports Bainimarama also opened a newly installed solar freezer.
These villagers will no longer have to travel for over half an hour by boat to seek basic medical care in Teddy.
Now with the facility to call your own, any discouragement or delay that you previously experienced in the past. You have the convenience of a nursing station that will provide services and health monitoring with ease. So don't let it go to waste.
The Prime Minister encouraging villagers to take advantage of the new nursing station and take ownership over their health and well-being. Bainimarama also opened a new solar freezer unit as the Tikina previously relied on the bounty of the sea to not only feed their families but generate income.
A lack of cold storage units and ice plants has made it difficult for you to keep your catch fresh for longer periods of time, meaning that too often you saw your hard work go to waste. But thanks to the Ministry of Fisheries, we have found a way to solve that long-standing problem in Tamasua and in maritime communities all throughout Fiji.
Prime Minister says while investments like these may seem small to some, he knows it will make a life-changing impact on the fishers of Yasawa and their community. Alpanisa Wangairandover, FBC News.
That's it from Business Tonight. We now join Jamie with the latest in sports.
Thank you, Whitney, and good evening in Sports Tonight. And plans in place to boost women's cricket. This and more after the break.
Bula, I'm Miri, I'm from Lotoka, and I love Gold FM because they play all my classic hits.
Gold FM, only the classic hits.
Fiji football star Roy Krishna has reportedly agreed to a new contract with Indian Super League club ATK. Reports by an Indian sports news site suggest that Krishna, who had a stellar season with ATK, helping win their third title, has agreed to a new contract with the club. However, when FBC Sports contacted the football star's wife, Nazia Ali Krishna, she remained tight-lipped on the subject, saying they are still in negotiations.
Still in negotiations at the moment with the club, so we can't confirm until next week when we will make an announcement on which club we're going with.
Roy's primary goal is to play for Fiji. That's in his heart. He's always expressed his interest to play, and if he is made available, he will definitely play, but it is usually something that Fiji football would have to arrange with the club.
We'll always be able to join the squad, but we can only demand him so or we can only demand his club to come with the squad when it's in a FIFA win.
All remaining Fiji football tournaments could be cancelled even if social gathering numbers are increased from 20 to 50 people. These tournaments include the Fiji Fact, the Battle of the Giants, and the Courts Inter-District Championship. Tali Matarakula with the details.
Holding tournaments is one way Fiji FA earn its revenue, and limiting crowd numbers will be a huge financial blow.
If the gatherings are only 50 allowed, then we'll not be able to have the tournaments. It's a huge cost.
Yusuf adds, apart from the three major tournaments, the Vodafone Premier League will be considered for resumption. However, limited numbers also presents financial burdens for district teams in hosting VPL matches.
It is also a cost to the districts who will be hosting the VPL matches. So if the public is not allowed to go and watch, then we'll have to see how best we can have the districts host matches without spectators.
Affiliate football associations have raised similar concerns.
When there is no crowd, then how would we cover the expenses and the cost for hosting the tournament, like ground hiring, referees, St. John securities, etc. 20 to 50, definitely that will be that cannot be profitable for Fiji FA, because we have a very small country. We cannot compare to English Premier League or any other. So whatever Fiji FA decision will make, then we will follow.
Everything is in the planning phase, and the final call will be made once the government makes the announcement. Tali Materkula, FBC Sports.
Former Fiji Mbate and Knights prop Daniel Saifiti was a one-man wrecking ball last night as the Newcastle side dismantled the Brisbane Broncos 27-6. Saifiti tore through the Broncos at every opportunity, scoring a try and helping himself to 226 meters. Women's cricket is something the sport's local governing body plans to focus on when restrictions are lifted. Cricket Fiji had major plans for women's development this year, and with an announcement on restrictions expected in the next few days, Cricket Fiji is ready to get the ball rolling again.
We need fresh talent for our females. It's there. It's just the onus is on us to take it out, and to be able to take it out, we'll need to be able to have the competition. So it's great news if we're able to do it. We'll continue with our pathway and strengthen our high-performance units.
New Wallabies coach Dave Rennie is itching to get on with his job as Trans-Tasman Rugby is set to return in the next few months. The former Chiefs boss has been isolated in New Zealand after returning from Scotland to take up the biggest challenge of his career. That's it from Sports Tonight. Coming up in new media, Facebook closes political ads loophole ahead of US election. This and more after the break.
Bula, I'm Miri. I'm from Lotoka, and I love Gold FM because they play all my classic hits.
Gold FM, only the classic hits.
And Angie joins us now with weather.
Hello to Friday and the great weather that accompanied. It was a fantastic day to take a break and walk along the seawall or just down your street out to the shop. The breeze was quite appealing. Now, before I actually start daydreaming, let's move on. In the west, nice day for an outing or just visiting the town or city. It wasn't too muggy. The night will be pretty cool. Eastwards from Pakhavar to Siva, warm and our type of weather. Not forgetting, the weekend is approaching, or should I say, it has started off from now. This weather is fit for it. And up north, grey skies indulged in the favorable weather right throughout for the northerners. At sea, southeast winds 15 to 20 knots, moderate to rough seas. Now turning to the tides, low tide at 11:23 p.m. with high tide at 5:38 a.m. For tomorrow, great weather is here to stay. Now get on with the shopping, marketing, and the things you love. Tomorrow's temps, most centers will have coolness drooling, especially in the night, as temps drop to 18 degrees. And looking further on to Sunday, fine weather to continue, so make the most of it while it's around. With that, have a jolly good weekend and keep warm. That's all from here. It's back to Jackie.
Thanks so much for that, Angie. In Fijian Pulse tonight, we ask, who is your favorite Fijian NRL player at the moment?
Ikan Kamira, because he's good with the ball.
Sules because he's very good in step and loose.
My favorite NRL player is William Kikau, mainly because of his busting tag. He's one very strong player in terms of running lines and defense.
My favorite player, NRL player is William Kikau, because he is my senior in William Kikau.
Recapping the main stories for tonight, 285 ATS employees terminated. Suspended SODELPA likely to advertise General Secretary's post, and bail for police officers charged with assault. Now for these stories and others, tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. Our poll question we're asking, is Hoskins Sotutu proving to be the best candidate for the All Blacks number 8 position? Visit our FBC website to answer. And our shot of the day, another gorgeous one, and this was taken at the Copper Shed Marina in Savu by Jeff Karoy. And you can send us newsworthy pictures and videos on email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj, by Facebook page FBC News, and our Twitter page at FBC_news. That's your news for tonight. From the team and I, have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Until tomorrow, Modamanda.
Bula, I'm Miri. I'm from Lotoka, and I love Gold FM because they play all my classic hits.
Gold FM, only the classic hits.